welcome everybody back to Double Down with Breslo. And we've got a great guest for you today. We're going to be talking everything Super Bowl. We know a lot of you are licking your wounds after that, as am I. I'm guessing probably some winners out there too. You winners should feel very fortunate that a particular ref was bought off in your favor. But we'll get to all that with Steven Kerstein. He is the head of company relations for PrizePicks, which no doubt did a lot of business over the weekend with the big Super Bowl action. PrizePicks is a really fascinating company that is really on the rise, and we want to hear all about it. So, Steven, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Jim. Really excited to be here. Very exciting time of the year, as you can imagine.
Yeah, well, we were on the pace there for perhaps the best Super Bowl ever, and then it was all destroyed by one yellow flag by one ref who just couldn't resist and keep it in his pocket. I assume you saw that play the same way I did, where the flag should have stayed in his pocket.
You know, I really didn't have any skin in the game. I'm a Bears fan, unfortunately, so I just watched the Super Bowl. You know, I had a little interest on it, but it was a shame to kind of see that things went that way. You know, just given the excitement of that second half was unbelievable, just back and forth. And yeah, for things to get determined like that, you know, it stinks. Was it the right call? Yeah, maybe in the first quarter, but with 2 minutes left in the fourth, that's tough to swallow.
Exactly. I mean, you know, look, you should call the game the same no matter when the game is on paper. I know theoretically, but you know, you should be aware that you've just decided the game. You've just ended the game by throwing this flag. So you better be extra sure. And, you know, apparently in NFL right now, there's no way to do a replay on that. I hate replays in general, but it does seem like maybe there should be some tweaking there. You know, when you're talking about last 2 minutes of a game, I mean, we see all kinds of things replayed. I mean, it's in the second quarter and it's, you know, it's second down and, oh, did he get a first down? So is it 1st and 10 or is it 3rd and inches? And they'll go to commercials and we'll wait 5 minutes to find out, is it 3rd and inches or first down? And yet we're not reviewing this play.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's always next year. And, you know, it's what, 73 points in a Super Bowl game. There was excitement, you know, nearly on every single play. And for our fantasy, you know, platform, it's huge, you know.
Yeah.
Lots of scoring, lots of excitement.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of the bets or the picks that I made when I was playing the game. And I even signed up on your site and signed up for what do you guys call it on your site?
A deposit bonus. So we do $100 match. Basically on your first $100, we give you an automatic 100 match, no slow roll. It comes to your account immediately.
Well, I'm proud to say that I did deposit $100. I did get $100 in free play. And by the time the game was over, my account was sitting at $225. So I did okay. I shouldn't be complaining so much. It was the bets that I placed elsewhere that were the big problem. I should have stuck with fantasy sports and with PrizePicks. And I do want to walk everybody through what my experience was, so they understand, you know, exactly how your site works and how it's different from other sports sites out there. But let's start by telling everybody the history of the company, because it's really a fascinating story, and it's a huge success story that more and more people are learning about.
Yeah, for sure. So it kind of starts back to the mid 2000 teens. You know, it was sort of that post Eric Schneiderman essence after, you know, DFS kind of got the boot in 2015, 2016, you know, after that meteoric rise of DraftKings and FanDuel related to the salary cap model being too sophisticated for people. You know, only 1% of customers were winning. It was too time consuming. A lot of people thought that there were unfair advantages. Our founder and CEO, Adam Wexler, in 2017, thought that there had to be a better way. There had to be a way to make fantasy sports more accessible to, you know, the masses. It can't just be the people who could spend all day crunching numbers at their computer. Hence, something a little bit more intuitive, a little bit more easy to understand, something a little bit more simple. our form of DFS was born. So that was PrizePicks back in 2017. Initially, the company was called PredictPicks, and we changed it for a lot of different reasons to PrizePicks. You can imagine why.
Were you actually giving away just prizes in the early days as opposed to actual money?
No, it's been real money since day one. But just for some marketing reasons, you could imagine why PredictPicks wouldn't sound so good on the radio. So we changed it to PrizePicks in 2018.
Yeah.
And I have been with the company in some capacity since the early days and have really seen it grow over time. So basically, our platform is solely surrounding player projections, where you build rosters between 2 and 6 athletes. And it's just assessing whether they're going to exceed or underperform their projections. So it's very simple in its nature.
And as you said, the beauty of it is you don't have to worry about who you're playing against.
Exactly.
And let's go into that a little bit as far as what you know and what's been going on with the daily fantasy sports then and now. And I don't play the game of poker because I don't know who I'm playing against. And I know I'm just kind of an average poker player, and I wouldn't like to play online. I wouldn't like to play in Vegas because I don't know who I'm playing against. I don't know what kind of edge they've got and so forth. And to some extent that was true, or still is true, with these other fantasy sites where you don't know who you're playing against and what methodology they used to pick their team that I've got to compete with. I'm just an average fan and I'm picking who, I think is going to do what versus who am I possibly competing with out there?
For sure. I mean, whether it's salary cap or, this model of DFS, there's so much skill involved. We have some really, really sophisticated customers who, are studying trends, looking at data all day. But when you're really in that salary cap model, the issue is what happens if there's an injury that you didn't see, and now suddenly everybody knew about it and you didn't. So now you're kind of in a disadvantaged position. With our model, you don't necessarily have to worry about that.
Right. And what about, you mentioned computers and algorithms. I mean, how sophisticated has it gotten with daily fantasy sports, with the tools people are using to pick their team?
It's probably, more akin to Wall Street than it was, even 10 years ago. Just extremely smart minds throughout this industry. It's constantly dynamic. There's so many different variables that our customers have to consider. And it makes it fun. It makes it unique every single day. And that's why people love our game, because they can come in, have a bunch of different strategies, make a bunch of different rosters based on things, ways that they think the game is going to unfold. And it's just a really exciting experience.
And tell us how you guys have been able to grow, because we know how competitive it is out there. I mean, first of all, there's DraftKings and there's FanDuel. Those are the two giants of fantasy sports. They're really what kind of, it seems to me, break down the door of starting to allow sports betting in the US. It reminds me of the business that I was in, which was making slot machines for Indian casinos. And we managed to come up with a slot machine that was legally not a slot machine, but it looked and played like one. And once those doors were open, the state started to realize, well, heck, if they can play this, we might as well let them play regular slot machines. And our kind of machines got pushed out, and they brought in regular machines to replace us. I think that's a lot of what's happened in the US, is that once you realize that DraftKings and FanDuel is legal and you're betting online on it, it's like, is it really that big of a stretch to then go to the next step of allowing full-fledged Las Vegas style sports betting?
Yeah, and I think it's a great question. I think a lot of people really like our simple fantasy game. It's really intuitive. You can play with your friends too. So if you and I were in the same room, we could, both make, a similar entry or go against each other. And, one of us could win or both of us could win. So I think that there's sort of a community element to our game that we've been really able to be, very successful about. You can go on our PrizePicks Twitter. It's a really engaging following. And you could also go in our Discord, which is basically just like this big virtual sports bar, where we have tens of thousands of people in there at once. And it's just a great place to interact with others.
Yeah, no, I did find it very intuitive and easy to follow. So, my experience was first signing up, depositing $100. I tried to do it with a credit card. It looked like I could do it with a credit card, but it kept kind of bouncing back. So I assume you guys are pretty much requiring a debit card at this point.
Debit card, but most major credit cards. So we'll have to take that offline and try to get that fixed up for you.
Okay, yeah, because I like to earn points on my credit card as I'm depositing money. But yeah, it ultimately worked with me with a debit card. I got my $100 free play bonus. And what was really interesting, I've never seen this before, so I got to give you guys credit on this one. These kind of special bets that you offer, discounted plays, I should say. So for the Super Bowl, you were offering, if you want to take Patrick Mahomes and the number of yards he's going to pass for, normally it would have said that, okay, over under 285 yards that Mahomes is going to pass for. You guys had it at over under a half yard. So it was basically a gimme. Tell me about that kind of promotion, because I've never seen something like that before.
No doubt. Specifically around big games, for marketing reasons, that's a really good way to get people onto the platform. And it's a really good way to generate wins and some good early experiences for our customers.
Yeah. And then I was just on there today, since my account is now flush with $225 cash. And you had a Taco Tuesday special today that you probably came up with that one. And that one, it was kind of on a random play. I think it was total shots on goal by a particular hockey player, and I forget who it was. And normally it would be over under 4 shots on goal for this guy, and instead it was 2.5. So naturally you take the over, and I've got a better than 50-50 chance of winning that one.
Exactly. So we actually let our community vote on Taco Tuesday, so they get to choose the promos. So it's actually a really interactive type of experience where you can go vote on Twitter, you can go vote on Discord, and it helps bring everybody together.
Yeah. And what's cool about it, and again, I don't know how original it is to you guys or not, but all the companies are out there giving bonuses to sign up, right? But there doesn't seem to be a lot of bonuses once you've already signed up. It's like, we're only going to give you a one-time bonus. Naturally, we're not going to keep bonusing you. And what happens with a lot of these sites is that somebody goes on there solely for the purpose of getting their bonus. Once they've played through their bonus, then they're done. They're moving on to the next site they're going to get a bonus from, right?
We'd rather create, more winning experiences as opposed to just giving out money. That's always been how it's been. Let's get creative with our promotions. Let's do things that are a little bit different. Excuse me. It's been coughing a bunch, but I'm very passionate about this, as you guys can tell. It's really important for retention purposes to do a lot of these things, because the deposit bonuses don't really work that well.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about what my experience was in betting the Super Bowl. We'll talk about some of the bets that I made, and I definitely want to hear how things went on your side and talk about the total numbers that were bet on the Super Bowl. We know viewership was number 3 all time. Got to figure betting was probably number 1 all time. We'll be back after the break with Steven Kerstein from PrizePicks.
Buy, hold, sell, brought to you by Crosscheck Management.
Hi everyone, I'm Veronica Dudo, and welcome to Buy,
Hold, Sell. If you have the Russians that are going into Ukraine, the Americans and the Germans and everyone else in Europe is going to say, hell no.
If Russia doing things, logically was their MO, I'd agree with you. Yeah, Todd, why don't you get him on a phone call right now? Hello,
Financial News TV, just the way you like it. Fast-paced, unadulterated, in-your-face, rock and roll style. Join us next time on Buy, Hold, Sell Live.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to remember all that. I can't even remember. Oh, God. Yeah, well, I want you to, oh, my God. Fast-paced, no, oh, sorry.
Take one.
Fast-paced, no holds barred, in-your-face, rock and roll style.
Woohoo! Let's kick some
want you to smash that like button.
Track, cue, dissolve.
Good morning and welcome
from Bigwig Studios.
From the Bigwig Media Studio.
Bigwig Media's broadcast center at the Willard is the ideal headquarters to host your virtual meetings and video conferences.
Kudos to our team who's running around behind the cameras.
What I liked about working with Bigwig Media was you guys are the experts.
Our industry pros have you covered. Let's get started.
Back, we are talking to Steven Kerstein, head of company relations for PrizePicks, one of probably the fastest growing sports websites in America right now, coming off of a big Super Bowl. So I don't know, have you seen the numbers? Was this the most bet Super Bowl in history, as most people predicted?
Definitely the most bet. I saw a lot of numbers coming through from different publications. In terms of fantasy, definitely our biggest day ever. We saw a huge. We were worried about just keeping the lights on and making sure that the platform stayed up. Just to give you some context, Jim, and I can happily say that was the case. We had a bunch of engineers on staff to make sure that everything was, according to plan, and it all went well. Obviously a very high scoring game. So you could imagine that, there were a lot of things that went our members' way, which is great. Ultimately, we, like I said earlier, we want to create as many winning experiences as possible. So it was a really fun night overall.
Can you share with us how many different players you had?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was really, really exciting, but we had over 400,000 people place an entry on Super Bowl Sunday. Wow,
amazing. How does that compare to last year?
Astronomically higher. So it was definitely a lot of growth year over year. And like I said, I was here when we did the first Super Bowl, and that was, we were talking about 10 to 15 different customers at a time. So you can imagine how amazing it is to see the growth of the company here.
Yeah. Well, so let's go over what I had, and maybe you can share with us some of the more interesting plays that were on there in how they did. So, and this will give people a good example of things that are available. Now, you guys had something on there where you could go over under on whether or not the Eagles. I think it's on fourth down conversion allowed. Would the Eagles defense allow a fourth down conversion? And it was over under a half. So I thought it was a no-brainer that Kansas City would at least have one fourth down conversion. Philly had like 4 of them, I think. And the over under on that was 1. So I should have gone with that, obviously, but instead I went with this. And Casey actually did not convert a fourth down. So that turned that one into a loser for me.
Yeah. Sometimes the game flow, like just the way that things went. And I would have thought that, they were chasing too as well at half. So that's kind of a surprising thing that happened. But, that's sort of the beauty of the game is that, there is a lot of sometimes just variance that happens. Yeah.
Well, one of my beefs about NFL football these days, and it came through big time in the Super Bowl, is just how few plays there are. There's just a lot more in college than there is in pro because of the way the clock winds. But, there was only 4 possessions by the Kansas City Chiefs in the second half, 3 touchdowns and a field goal. Philly also had only 4 possessions. KC only had 4 possessions in the first half. So these games go by really, really quickly. And that's, I don't know. For the Super Bowl, you'd think somehow the thing should go longer than that. Okay. Fortunately, I had both of mine were losses in that particular entry. That was a 2-pick entry. I had Chris Jones, who's the notorious defensive lineman for Kansas City. All I had to do was get 1 tackle for a loss. He apparently did not tackle anybody for a loss. And that's a pretty big deal. And another kind of a surprise coming out of that game.
Yeah. It sounds like you were kind of on some ones that a lot of our members weren't on, to be honest. Usually I hear about field goals, I hear about receiving yards. So interesting that you were on those 2.
Well, an interesting note is that, I know it has to be your plays have to be players. You can't bet on a side or a total. You have to pick players. That's why it's fancy. I did find it interesting that you can pick a defense. How do you guys couch that as far as that being fantasy?
A defense is essentially a roster of defensive players. So, there's 11 people on the field and they all come together to play together. So it's just a lot more players coming together to potentially get more stats.
So same thing with offense then. Theoretically, you could have a play being what an offense is going to do. Total yards for the offense?
Well, we tend to try to do like a lot more like combos with like two players. So you'll see like, we might put the two Philadelphia wide receivers together. We really stay away from a lot of the whole team offensive stats.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next one that was a loser. This one you guys combined Mahomes and Jalen Hurts on total pass yards. Mm-hmm. Mahomes came in really low. What's really interesting is Mahomes actually went way over on rushing and way under on pass yards, which considering the bum ankle, nobody would have expected that. Hurts was over on his pass yards. I think he threw for about 320 some odd. But when you combine the two, you guys had an over under of 526 combined yards, and it came out to like 486. So that made that 3-pick entry a loser, even though my other 2 picks were winners. I had Travis Kelce over on 77.5 yards. He went for 81 yards, and Jerick McKinnon, I had him at over 19.5, and he was at 34 yards. So I hit 2 out of 3, but that made it a loser.
Yeah, you must have done 2 out of 3 on our power play. But if you would have done our flex play, you would have actually had a partial win. Our flex play is very popular. It essentially gives you a lot of that upside still, but it gives you protection in case you miss 1 or 2 picks. Yeah. And our members love the flex play. And it's a really, really cool way for us to differentiate ourselves from a lot of the other products that are out there.
Yeah. Thanks for rubbing it in. Yeah, I should have done flex play on that one. But, sure. If I'm going to roll the dice, I'm going to roll the dice. So that was a $75 play. And that I would have received what, 300 on that, or 375?
300.
300.
Yeah.
So, but which means effectively it pays 3-1 or it pays 4-1. That play.
It pays 3-1.
3-1. So a 3-person parlay or power play pays 3-1, and a 2-person pays 2-1.
I'm sorry. A 3x power play pays 5x, so it pays 4-1. Okay.
4-1. Right.
And a 2-person power play pays 2-1.
Right. So I would have netted 300. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
You guys work it a little bit differently than people, used to making a traditional bet, but it's $75 for the entry, and then I would have gotten $375 back.
Correct.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go on to my winners. Here's Mahomes. Yeah, this was on the rushing yards, so over under 18.5 yards, and he came out to 44. So he blew that away. A couple of big rushes there. I think that, Philly didn't think that he had the mobility to run. So I really felt on the couple plays where he had long runs that Philly was just kind of relaxed because they just thought this guy cannot run on this ankle.
I think the field also had something to do with it. A lot of the Philadelphia defensive players were saying that it wasn't as easy for them to play as they thought it would be.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, at halftime, they were out there repairing the field. Right. Leave it to them to overthink the playing field. This is where the Arizona Cardinals played every one of their home games, and now it's the Super Bowl. So it's just like, okay, guys, just change it from Arizona Cardinals to NFL and Super Bowl, and you're done. But no, instead they brought in some new company apparently that went in and ripped the entire field out, replanted the whole thing with some type of super special soil and turf and so on, just for the Super Bowl. And what a surprise. They screwed the whole thing up.
Unbelievable what they do with the spotlight on them.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was a winner because I had to combine with Jalen Hurts. I do have to say that, it's really great how you guys show your entries after they're completed. So it's really easy to look at it, and it shows you right there on a little bar graph. Here's how many yards your guy needed to get, and here's how many he wound up with. So you quickly, you don't have to double check anything. You're seeing it right there that, okay, yeah, he had to go over 18.5 rushing yards. And there it is right there showing that he had 44. And so that, you had a winner. So very, very user-friendly, I have to say.
And it's really fun in the moment to be able to like track it during the game and see how you're progressing.
Oh, that's cool. See, I didn't do that.
That's how most people like to do it.
So if I was on there, it would be showing me so far he's got 12 yards. So far he's got 21 yards.
That's been a huge differentiator for us. It's the live scoring has been really, really massive for keeping people engaged, and keeping people, just enjoying the app.
Yeah. And another thing I noticed you do is that you do allow somebody to pick one over or under what their projected fantasy points are. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So people that are used to playing in a fantasy league like I do, that your quarterback, usually he's scheduled to get around 23 fantasy points or whatever. You can pick any fantasy team you want and you'll go over under on the number of points, right?
Fantasy scores are still one of our most popular options for sure. People love them. They're a little nostalgic, and they're a big differentiator for us as well. It's definitely part of our core identity.
So where do you guys go from here as a company? I mean, you just blew it out of the water on the Super Bowl. What's next for you guys?
Yeah, so I mean, NBA is our number one market. So we're gonna have we're gonna have a little bit of a break here from our normal festivities with the All-Star break coming. Having said that, we're gonna have a bunch of different All-Star break type contests. We've done the slam dunk contest. We've done rising stars. We've done 3-point contests. So we really keep it fresh at PrizePicks. I'm thinking we're still going to do something for the skills challenge even. So, and we'll obviously do the All-Star game as well. So we really do keep it fun. March Madness will be big. Call it in the next 4 weeks. Really exciting college basketball product. And then we got baseball and golf too, right around the corner. So lots of good things. And then esports is a big differentiator for our business as well. I would be remiss to not mention esports as part of the PrizePicks identity.
So if I looked on there right now, I would see esports as one of the options.
Yes, you would, and it's a top 5 market for us overall. So I mean, it's a really, really fun market. It's evolving. We're still in the early innings of the industry, but it's definitely a big part of what we are at PrizePicks.
And you must have in-house, handicappers that are setting the various numbers on these plays, right?
Yeah, I mean, so we have a big game operations team, as we call them, with different specialties and different expertise. And it just makes it really fun because we have a really knowledgeable group of individuals who all kind of bring something else to the table.
Interesting, because when I was looking at my picks, I do have to say that I was comparing it online just by Googling the Vegas odds on some of these things, because Vegas obviously offers all the same over-under bets, on yards and so on. And your guys was off of it pretty significantly on a few. And so I chose to kind of pick those, and, Vegas had it at 280, you had it at 290. I'll take yours and go under. How do you kind of explain that discrepancy that might exist on your site versus, say, a traditional betting site?
Yeah, I mean, we're not a traditional betting site, so we're fantasy. We do it our own way, I guess would be the way that I would kind of describe it. We have a bunch of there's a lot of skill that's involved with this whole process, and there's just sort of some more traditional ways that some of the sports books do things, and then there are ways that we progressive fantasy sports companies do. And that's why you might see discrepancies. Yeah.
Well, you guys are killing it so far. We'll have to do this interview again in 6 months or so and see what's the latest with PrizePicks. But definitely seems like you guys are one of the fastest growing sports sites in the U.S. right now.
Thank you so much, Jim. This has been a pleasure, and excited to chat next time.
All right, Steven. Steven Kerstein from PrizePicks, thanks so much for joining Double Down with Breslo. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thank you all for watching.
I want you to smash that like button.